So he changed topics. I'd also like to gather intelligence on the new adamantite rank adventurer who popped up in E-Rantle. Will you help me? Of course, Your Imperial Majesty. Chapter 10, The Most Powerful Trump Card 14 Late Fire Moon, September 10:31 p.m. Around 300 feet above the royal capital, a party was flying across the sky. They blended in with the stars. 2 casters had used fly. Directly behind them sat 2 others being pulled, for a total of 4. One of the seated ones was a man wearing raven black armor with large swords on his back. The other was a beautiful woman with a ponytail. It was Aintz and Narbarrel. Early that morning, the 2 of them had been requested by name at the E-Rantle Adventurers Guild. They took on a job with the promise of an unprecedented reward. The client was Marquis Reven. The official job was to guard the man's house for a few days. It seemed like some kind of emergency was going to happen in the kingdom. Aintz knew there was more to it than the official story. He'd heard the rest at the time of the request. According to that discussion, the Marquis was sending some soldiers to capture the facility of an underworld organization called the 8 Fingers. He wanted Momon to fight as a member of that unit. He wanted Aintz to handle the strongest enemies, known as the 6 Arms. Aintz couldn't think of any reason to refuse the request. Adventurers didn't normally participate in country-level affairs. That was the unwritten rule. But Aintz appreciated that the man had prepared an official request. This was so as not to cause trouble for the Dark Hero, Momon, despite breaking the rule. And more than anything, the compensation was drool-worthy. Aintz thought he could take advantage of this windfall and relax a bit. So he negotiated up his fee while taking great care not to appear indecent, desperately hiding how attractive he found the job. He made a show of hesitancy, but eventually accepted the request. The only problem was that he had been asked to head for the royal capital with the utmost urgency. In Yggdrasil, there had been teleportation stations here and there. These would take players between different cities and countries. But in this world, there was nothing like that. On top of that, teleportation magic started at Tier 5. So according to the story Aintz had concocted, they couldn't use it. They would never have made it within a day traveling by horse. So how would they go? The answer came from casters who worked for Marquis Reven. They were able to bring Aintz and Narbarrel to the capital at high speed. They combined a special flight spell which consumed more MP than usual with floating board. How did they use that combination? It's simple. Where the pair of adventurers was sitting tells the whole story. They were atop the translucent platform created by floating board. Since the spell absorbed their weight, the casters could pull them without losing speed. That is how they came to the capital in a straight shot. The timing had still been unrealistic though. They arrived far later than planned. So Aintz was a bit worried. Would they show up and learn their services were no longer necessary? Would they receive their compensation? He'd been lured by the exceptionally huge reward, so of course the client wouldn't want to pay such a sum to someone who hadn't done any work. Aintz didn't want to count his chickens before they hatched. He sighed discreetly and prayed to something. He felt just like an employee of a company that wasn't performing well would feel about their bonus. May I please be paid my fee in full? He already knew how he was going to spend it. Besides that, he was enjoying his first look at the capital, as well as the ride through the night. Unfortunately, it wasn't really possible to enjoy a lit-up night view. Most of the capital was shrouded in darkness. There was not a pocket of cheer to be seen. Still, for Aintz, who could see in the dark, the experience satisfied his curiosity to some extent. Taking in the scene with bizarre earnestness, he happened to catch sight of an unusual sparkle in a certain area. He didn't understand what was happening at first, but when the black flames climbed into the air, he recognized it as an emergency. Wait, look at that. There it is again. Something flashing over there. It seems like magic. That does seem to be magic. The caster didn't seem very confident when he looked in the direction Aintz was pointing. This was probably due to the distance and the fact that it was nighttime. For a normal human, it was difficult to tell. Is this a daily occurrence in the capital, or are you guys setting off fireworks to welcome us? The caster replied to Aintz's joke with a straight face. That location is one of the 8 Fingers bases we were supposed to be raiding. I see. I didn't think we'd make it in time, but it looks like I'll be able to be of some use after all. Understood. I'll take you that way. Stop. It seems like someone is using some high-tier magic down there. If you get caught in the crossfire, you'll be killed. Aints looked away from the caster. His face said, "Then what are we supposed to do?" Aints turned to Narbarrel. "Nabe, use fly and carry me. Once we get close, I'll give you a signal and you can drop me." "Understood." It was late fire moon September at 10:33 p.m. From where Everly stood at the limits of her life, the Black Warrior's question seemed idiotic, but she quickly re-evaluated the situation. Considering how they were dressed, both sides should have appeared equally suspicious. It was a confrontation between two people who wore masks to hide their faces. If she were in his position, it wouldn't have been strange to go against her. Everly had an idea who the Black Warrior was and called out, "Dark Hero, I am Everly of the Blue Roses. I ask you as a fellow Adamantite rank adventurer, please help me." She realized her mistake. As soon as she had shouted, she had given her opponent an advantage. Even if the Adamantite rank adventurer Momon helped her, what good would that do? Even for Everly, victory was doubtful against this unfathomably powerful demon. He could join her, but it would only be like two pieces of paper standing to fight instead of one. Surely the gale force wind would mow them down. All her request could do was rob the life of the man who'd come to rescue her. What she should have shouted was a warning to flee. If she was going to request something of him, it should have been to gather the bodies of her fallen comrades and run away. However, got it. The man gave Everly cover and confronted the demon. Everly gasped. The moment he moved to protect her, it felt like an enormous rampart had appeared before her. Her heart filled with relief and calm. The opposing demon slowly lowered his head. It was the deep, respectful bow a manservant might use toward a noble. He didn't honestly feel respect, so it must have been feigned politeness, a demon's sarcasm. Well, how good of you to come. First, may I ask your name? I am Jaldabaoth." Everly heard the man's voice murmur dubiously, "Jaldabaoth," from beneath his raven-black helmet. And then, that's a weird name. She didn't think it was strange, but she sifted through her knowledge of demons, and she wasn't sure she had ever heard it before. Jaldabaoth. "Okay, I am Momon. As she mentioned earlier, I am an Adamantite rank adventurer." Though the demon Jaldabaoth's demeanor was unpleasant, the Dark Warrior Momon carried on the conversation with no change in attitude. It was a glimpse of what a first-rate adventurer this man Momon was. He was broad-minded enough to swallow any open contempt for his opponent in the name of extracting intelligence from him. Everly was impressed. At the same time, embarrassed by her rising emotions, she hid behind the edge of Momon's crimson cape so as not to disrupt their conversation. She intended to help Momon fight, but she felt she might get in his way. The two of them didn't appear to be paying attention to her at all. Their breathtaking battle of information continued while she changed positions. "I see. And might I inquire as to what brings you here?" "A request. I was summoned by a noble on the pretext of guarding his home, but I noticed your fight as I was flying over the capital. I realized there was some emergency and came down. The noble must have been Marquis Revan. So he summoned an Adamantite rank adventurer to the capital now. She guessed that he meant to have Momon participate in the struggle against the Eight Fingers as much as he could without breaking the Adventurers Guild's unwritten law of non-intervention in human matters. What's your objective? It seems a magic item with the power to summon and control our kind has ended up in this city. I've come to collect it, so if we offer you the item, the problem will be solved. No, that won't be possible. I am afraid that as enemies we must do battle. That is your conclusion, de Jaldabaoth. There is no path forward but as enemies. No, as you say, we must be adversaries. Everly felt like something was off and cocked her head. Rather than waging an information battle, they seemed to be simply exchanging intelligence, but she decided that couldn't be true. I think I've got the general picture. In that case, I'll go ahead and defeat you. You don't have a problem with that, right? Momon slowly spread his arms. The huge sword's extensions of himself gleamed. Oh, but I do. I'll go ahead and resist. Here I come, he charged. Or it was more correct to say that she felt he charged. At some point, Momon, who had been standing in front of her, was clashing with Jaldabaoth. The level of combat was such that Everly couldn't even describe what was happening. Momon's blades flashed innumerable times. Jaldabaoth deflected them with his long nails. Amazing, there were many words she could have chosen for an accolade, but seeing his glittering sword, she chose the simplest and most honest one. Its slices surpassed those of any warrior in her memory. He was like a warrior who slashed through evil and the darkness enveloping the world right along with it. She even fancied that she had become one of the princesses from the songs of the bards. The image of a dashing knight saving her overlapped with the dark warrior before her. Something like an electric shock passed through the muscles between her legs, and she trembled slightly. She sensed that her heart, static for 250 years, had leaped. She put a hand to her small chest, but as she thought, there was no movement like that time before. Still, it couldn't have been her imagination. "You can do it, Sir Momon." She folded her hands to make a wish that her knight would claim victory over the terrible demon. Jaldabaoth was knocked way back with a ker-bang that didn't sound like an impact on flesh. He didn't fall, but slid over the cobblestones as if the soles of his shoes were worn down. After retreating several yards, he brushed the dirt from his clothes. "Magnificent. It may be that my one mistake was facing a genius warrior like you." Momon thrust the sword in one of his hands into the cobblestones with a ker-shing. He rotated his arm to work out the knots in his neck. He replied in an even tone, "Spare me the flattery. You're probably still concealing plenty of power." Everlight's eyes bulged. The idea that they hadn't been fighting all out was far beyond common sense. Is he a demigod? Now and then, one among those with blood of the beings known as Pleiades awakened to immense power. In the theocracy, they were known as demigods. To be more accurate, someone recognized to have blood of one of the 6 great gods was a demigod. There was another word for someone who had other player blood. In any case, there was a chance Momon had player blood. Without it, there was no way a person could possess so much power. No, I can win against you, Lord Mr. Momon, was it? That's right, Jaldabaoth. My name is Momon, understood. Then here I come, demon aspect tentacle wings. Wings grew out of Jaldabaoth's back. Instead of feathers, they were covered with flat, abnormally long tentacles. He spoke kindly to Momon, who was on guard in a fighting stance. "You are strong, truly strong. I have no doubt you are stronger than me, so although I'd rather not, I am going to resort to this. I am sure you can protect yourself if you switch to defense, but in that case, you had better give up on saving the small fry behind you. I suggest taking care of yourself." The moment he finished speaking, the flat, thin tentacles stretched forward with the force of projectiles. The tips were extremely sharp, and could probably pierce human flesh and bone alike with no trouble. Everlight saw the wings closing in around her at high speed. There was nothing she could do. She didn't even have enough magical energy left to create a barrier with something like crystal wall. All she could do was duck and hope for a stroke of luck. The next moment, however, she learned that she had still underestimated the Dark Warrior. After hearing a hard clang, she looked up and saw a solid shield. The feather tentacles, cut to ribbons, fell to the ground. They might have been able to slice up humans, but in this state, they were so beautiful. "I am glad you are safe." The man's unconcerned voice sounded so normal, it was hard to believe he had just swung his one-handed sword fast enough to intercept all the approaching feather tentacles. He wasn't even out of breath. Your shoulder, are you okay?" One of the ribbons was sticking to Momon's shoulder. It had been severed afterward, so it hung limply, almost like a decoration on his armor. "I am fine. This is nothing to worry about. More importantly, I am relieved that you seem all right." He laughed a bit. Everlight sensed her heart beat once more in her breast. Her face was awfully hot. It felt like her mask was heating up. "Magnificent. That you were able to keep her perfectly safe from harm is simply I, Jaldabaoth, offer you my humble praise. You are truly magnificent." Cut out the brown oozing. More importantly, "Jaldabaoth, why are you so far away?" As Momon spoke, he reached out toward Everlight and scooped her up. Her unbeating heart practically leaped out of her chest. The bard stories she'd always ridiculed were playing over and over in her head. She recalled the scenes where knights fought while carrying a princess in one arm. Common sense said that when facing a powerful enemy, taking along such a burden was idiotic. And yet she thought, "I am sorry, bards of the world. A real knight does carry a princess of a tender age while fighting to protect her." Oh my gosh, she was so embarrassed. But Everlight's delight swiftly fizzled. Her dream was to be cradled. In reality, he held her like a piece of luggage, tucked under his left arm. No, surely this was the correct way to do it. Everlight was a bit smaller than the average adult woman. From a balance standpoint too, the core was the most stable part of the body. So this made the most sense. She knew she was in no position to complain. In fact, She was still full of hatred that her friends had been killed. She knew full well she didn't have time to think about these silly things. Still, she couldn't completely suppress the discontent that rose in a corner of her mind. Everly wondered if it wouldn't be easier on him if she clung to him as well, but she wasn't confident that she could hang on if they got caught up in another high-speed exchange like what she witnessed before, so she didn't say anything. Another bout seemed ready to begin. She looked at Jaldabaoth and Momon. There was more space between them than before, but for a warrior at the limits of possibility and a super high-level demon, it was probably only a step. I think it's about time we got started. No, I will take the liberty of withdrawing. As I mentioned before, our objective is not to defeat you. I shall soon wrap part of the royal capital in flames. If you insist on intruding, I guarantee the fires of purgatory will send you to the next world. With that, Jaldabaoth turned his back and ran away. Although he didn't seem to be sprinting, the distance between them increased rapidly. He melted into the night almost immediately. Oh no, Sir Momon, hurry, we have to slay him. Everly gasped in a panic before they lost sight of him, but Momon shook his head. We can see he chose to retreat to execute his plan. If we chased him, he'd probably start to fight in earnest. And then Momon went silent, but Everly knew the rest. And then you'll get caught up in the battle and die. That was probably what he was going to say. Even if he had left her here and gone after him, that nasty demon would have threatened her as well with his attacks. Momon had protected her earlier, so her value as a hostage was clear. Unable to be of any use to the man who had saved her life, she berated herself. I talked so high and mighty to climb, but this is all I am capable of. Despicable. Okay, Nabe. What do you think we should do now? As if in answer to his question, a woman floated slowly down from the sky. Everly knew he had cast a nicknamed Beautiful Princess on his team. She had once laughed, thinking the name was embarrassing, but upon seeing her, her breath caught. She was so lovely. Everly couldn't help but stare. She thought she must have foreign blood from a southern country. Master Mr. Momon, how about going to the client's house like we planned, and ignore Jaldabaoth? Don't you think my role in the capital might be to stop his plan? It might be, but I think it's important that we confirm with the client first. You're right. More importantly, I suggest dropping that crane fly onto the cobblestones. Oh sorry, I thought it would be dangerous if you got caught up in that fight. Momon gently put Everly down. No, please don't worry about me. I knew what your intentions were. She bowed deeply. Thank you very much for saving me. As I mentioned briefly before, I am Everly of the Adamantite rank adventurer team, the Blue Roses. I appreciate your courtesy. I am Momon, also an Adamantite rank adventurer, and that caster is my teammate Nabe. So what are your plans now? Those two are your friends, aren't they? If so, I don't mind helping you transport them. His finger pointed to Gagarin and Tia. I thank you for your kindness, but that won't be necessary. Other comrades should arrive shortly. We might even use resurrection magic right here. Momon's armor clanked loudly. Everly sharply perceived a streak of intense interest in the gaze coming from the slit in his helmet. Wait, you can so you can use resurrection magic, can you? Yes. Our leader Lachius can resurrect the dead. I see. Then I'd like to ask you something. Does resurrection magic work even if you cast it from very far away? What do you mean? For example, if you wanted to bring these two back to life, and you cast from some far-off place, say, the Empire, where would they come back to life? In the Empire, or at the location of the corpses? Why is he so interested in resurrection magic? Is he just curious? Faith casters who could use tier 5 spells weren't terribly common, so it wasn't strange for him to be curious. Or did someone important to him die? In that case, her answer might be harsh. All she could do was hope that wasn't the case. I don't know the details, but I heard that for the spell Lachius casts, it doesn't really work unless the corpses to be revived are in the immediate vicinity. So to answer your question, Sir Momon, it wouldn't be possible to cast it from the Empire. Then I have another question. After reviving those two, would they be able to head straight into combat? That would be impossible, Everly declared simply. The resurrection spell Lachius could cast was the tier 5 spell Raise Dead. The magic consumed a vast amount of life force. Iron rank adventurers, or those below, would definitely turn to ashes. 2 adventurers ranked adamantite could be resurrected without issue. However, due to the loss of vitality, they wouldn't move very well. It would take a while for them to recover. If Jaldabaoth was right, and they were NT yet safe, then their team had suffered a significant loss. No, as long as this man is the only one who can compete with that demon, nothing will change even if they are resurrected. It is smarter to let them recuperate. I understand things for the most part. If it is all right, I'd like to meet this woman, Lachius. Do you mind if I wait with you for a while? What? Why do you want to meet her? She realized she raised her voice, although she didn't understand why. Something had prickled in her chest when Momon said he wanted to meet Lachius. Even she was surprised. Momon, on the receiving end of the shout, seemed equally disturbed. She blushed with intense shame beneath her mask.